everybody, welcome to another video. Right now there's a big event going on in the United States called the Summit of the Americas. The United States is hosting it this year in the city of Los Angeles. To give some context, the Summit of the Americas began in 1994 and was pretty much started by the United States, and it was hosted the first year in 1994 in Miami, Florida, and it meets regularly where the different leaders of the Western Hemisphere, Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and so forth, meet together. The last meeting was in 2018 in Peru. So this year, it's being held in the United States in Los Angeles. And there's a lot to talk about this summit. One of the major things with this year's summit is the U.S. government decided to exclude Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua from attending. Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela were not invited by the United States to attend this summit, and as a result, many other countries decided they're also not going to attend. The U.S. was describing the governments of Venezuela and Nicaragua and Cuba as dictatorships. And yes, Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua are dictatorships. Cuba, for example, is a one-party communist state where they regularly arrest people and there's no freedom of press. Venezuela is a dictatorship under Nicolas Maduro. There are no free elections, and Nicaragua has no free elections. It's been ruled by Daniel Ortega since 2007. But at the same time, the U.S. is going back to buying oil from Venezuela again. The U.S. government has this year undone its sanctions against Venezuelan oil. And Chevron is now back in business with Venezuela and PDVSA, the state oil company of Venezuela. So if the U.S. is saying on one hand, Venezuela cannot attend the Summit of the Americas, you're a dictatorship, but on the other hand, the U.S. is publicly negotiating with the Nicolas Maduro government, who the U.S. officially stopped recognizing in 2018, that's a lot of contradictions. It's a lot of inconsistency. And other countries are watching that and just seeing the sheer hypocrisy of the U.S. government by not inviting Venezuela, but at the same time wanting to go and buy oil from Venezuela again. So the next major thing I wanted to talk about was the boycott. So several countries were upset that the United States decided not to invite Cuba or Nicaragua or Venezuela, such as Mexico's president, AMLO. He said that this is not even a true summit then, if not everyone's invited. So the Mexican president, AMLO, decided to skip this Summit of the Americas. Also, Honduras' president, Xiomara Castro, the Guatemalan president, Alejandro Giammattei, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, decided not to come, and Bolivia, their president, President Luis Arce, also decided not to go. And the president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, almost didn't also come to this summit meeting. So already this summit meeting was off to a bad start. A lot of countries have basically not much interest in attending it, and it shows that the hegemony of the United States over Latin America is diminishing. A lot of the countries in Latin America are just not going to take being commanded and bossed around by the United States again, and they will pursue their own policies and be their own countries, something that the United States really never allowed for much of even the 20th century. So now that we've discussed some of the countries who were not invited, as well as the countries who have decided to boycott the Summit of the Americas, let's also talk about now the countries who were invited and are attending the summit, who clearly are questionable. And one of those countries is Haiti and its acting Prime Minister, Ariel Henry. Ariel Henry is an unelected leader. In Haiti, the president of the country, Jovenel Moise, was assassinated in July 2021. And ever since his assassination, there has been no election in Haiti. And Prime Minister Ariel Henry has been implicated in the assassination of President Jovenel Moise. So the current acting leader of Haiti may or may not have had a role in assassinating his predecessor, President Jovenel Moise, and he is ruling unelected and has not held any elections in Haiti. And yet, he is considered an example of democracy, and he's allowed to attend the Summit of the Americas. Haiti has a horrible human rights record on top of that, with the crises, with out-of-control kidnappings and crime. And apparently that's okay for the Summit of the Americas. Haiti was invited. And we'll talk about another country, Colombia. Colombia has a horrible human rights record as well. And President Ivan Duque, a conservative leader, has undermined the whole peace process from 2016 between the Colombian government and the FARC terrorist group who have demobilized. Colombia still continues to be a very violent country with out-of-control violence in many parts of the country. And Colombia has the second highest amount of internally displaced people after Sudan and Africa. And there are mass graves in Colombia from its decades-long armed conflict civil war. And then there's many cases where the Colombian military has been involved in blatant extrajudicial killings, illegal killings, like the false positives scandal, where many former Colombian soldiers are admitting they wrongfully killed innocent people to try to present them as dead guerrilla fighters. So when you have Haiti and Colombia attending the Summit of the Americas, Haiti is not any better than Cuba. So as the Summit of the Americas is occurring from June 6th to June 10th, a lot of activists have been doing their own alternative and protests to the U.S. Summit of the Americas with the People's Summit in Los Angeles. The People's Summit, I learned about, has been going on since 2005, and activists from both the United States and Latin America criticize U.S. policy in Latin America. And this year's People's Summit in Los Angeles has different workshops and speaking events talking about the negative role of U.S. intervention in Latin America, as well as the OAS, Organization of American States, talking about immigration, and doing a workshop and speaking event about the ongoing U.S. embargo against Cuba and the negative effects of it. And there are lots of alternative voices who want to honestly say the truth and counter a lot of the lies of the U.S. government. So some of the takeaways from this U.S. Summit of the Americas is the United States and Latin America are contradicting with each other. The U.S. hegemony and role over Latin America is diminishing. The countries in Latin America are pursuing their own independent foreign policies, and honestly have been ever since the pink tide at the beginning of the 2000s. the U.S. role in Latin America is declining, and countries like even El Salvador, Central America, and so forth are not going to take being treated as America's backyard anymore, and they're going to run their own countries the way they want, as well as the countries in South America. And the U.S. cannot continue trying to isolate Cuba anymore. Ever since the beginning of the 2000s, that has stopped. A lot of the countries like Mexico and Venezuela and other countries are openly trading and doing business with Cuba, and the U.S. can't get the countries to stop anymore. The U.S. also can't isolate countries like Nicaragua or Venezuela either, because countries like Mexico and others will stand behind them, and the U.S. will end up embarrassed and at odds. And then the other countries, they're not going to just keep cooperating with whatever the U.S. wants them to do anymore. The era of U.S. intervention in Latin America is finally declining. Hopefully, check out the website and more info about the People's Summit, and the one that hopefully we'll be having next year as well. Thanks for watching the video.